Welcome to the Retirement Evolved podcast with certified financial fiduciary Adam Bruno.
Wow, I never get tired of that intro, Lauren. How about you?
It's the best.
It is the best. It's. I wish I could speak like that, but it doesn't work out that well for me. I have a voice for non-radio, which is why we're on the podcast. We are back for episode
44.
44, and we have some very, very wonderful info to give out today, right, Kurt?
Yes.
Oh, there he is. It's the one and only Kurt Trauslen. I am Adam Bruno, certified financial fiduciary. Along with me, as always, is the one, the only Lauren Trauslen. And today, as you already heard, Mr. Wonderful, as we like to call him, Kurt Trauslen is joining us, my partner, my associate in crime here. Couldn't do it without him. As much as I like to give you a bunch of stuff, but we couldn't do this without you. So today, we are going to have a very special edition because we are featuring Kurt Trauslen. So, this week in history, 2017, American actress Mary Tyler Moore, who helped redefine the portrayal of women on TV with her roles in the comedies The Dick Van Dyke Show from 1961 to 66 and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, 1970-77, died in Greenwich, Connecticut. And that was very unfortunate. I like Mary Tyler Moore.
Me
Do
too.
you know who her son is? Shauna Astin. You know, the guy that played Rudy? Isn't that her son?
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's her son.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we got to look that up, but I'm pretty sure. 1837, Michigan became the 26th U.S. state admitted to the Union. 1961, the animated film 101 Dalmatians was released in the United States, and it became a Disney classic, especially noted for the villainous character Cruella de Vil. Cruella de Vil. Okay. 1949, the first Emmy Awards were presented. There were only 6 categories. Boy, can we go back to that? And nominated shows were limited to those that aired in the Los Angeles area only. And in 1988, Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera, a musical version of Gaston Leroux's melodramatic novel, opened in New York City and went on to become the longest-running show in Broadway history. And you know, I was just in London and we saw The Phantom of the Opera there.
Yes, you did. I heard about that.
It was amazing. I love The Phantom of the Opera. Okay. What'd you say, Lauren?
I said a little say what?
Say what?
Alabama, a man crashed his car outside a Bass Pro Shop in Alabama, stripped down to his birthday suit, and plunged into the giant aquarium inside the store, the police said. The ordeal happened Thursday night in front of shocked shoppers in the town just outside of Birmingham. Leeds Police Chief Paul Irwin said that the 42-year-old Alabama man did a cannonball leap into the aquarium and then stood under the waterfall. He left the water to yell at 2 officers, then dove back into the aquarium, police said. The man eventually climbed over the side of the aquarium and fell onto the concrete floor below. Police then apprehended him. Wow. You know, I've done some pretty crazy things in college, and I know you have too, but I don't think I've ever jumped into the aquarium at Bass Pro. I mean, I heard somebody just took a fish out. They scooped up a fish, a tarpon, with a net at the Fort Myers Gulf Coast Town Center and walked out with it. I saw it on the
You know,
the news.
I was so proud of you for not starting this off with Florida man. We finally get an Alabama man. And we still have a way to relate it back to something stupid someone in Florida does. I mean, it's just, you can't make this stuff up, folks. So anyways, there's your entertainment for the day. In case you were wondering, we are Evolution Retirement Services and Evolution Wealth Management. We should be your preferred and your only stop in retirement when you need real wisdom instead of just the information that comes to you via your mailbox and the next meal that you can eat, the next seminar you can go to. We wanted to make everything available to you on our podcast at our live events. We really have a heart for educating you, making sure that you can make retirement even better, because it's probably pretty good right now, right, Lauren? But we want to make it even better. Right, Kurt?
Yes.
Yes. This is going to be
2
so
words
hard.
out of Kurt so far. We're doing good.
It's like pulling blood from a stone. Okay, so one of the things we wanted to discuss today, and you can always follow us on our podcast here. Is it follow? Is it subscribe?
Subscribe. Follow. Like.
Yeah, a lot of questions because most of our clientele is a little bit older. This was new to me too, on how to actually find a podcast. But when you find us, there's actually a little button in the corner that you can hit that subscribe. That way you know whenever there's a new episode. Some families like to we send out an email when there's a new episode and you can download it there. But a lot easier for you if you just follow, then it should send you a notification to your phone that there's a new episode ready. we're doing it every 2 weeks. We've been really pressured to do it a little bit more, but we want to make sure that it's special still. So every 2 weeks, you can go to taxfreefortmyers.com to download my book complimentary. I say it all the time. My mom's the only one that paid full price for that book. So this isn't about selling books. It's just about spreading the information and the knowledge that you need to make retirement even better. And you can also go to evolutionretirementservices.com. Lauren is on her journey, her odyssey to make our website even better. So look for that to come in the next coming weeks. And you can also contact us anytime. Adam at evoretire.com, Kurt at evoretire.com, Lauren at evoretire.com. We're here for you. We're here to answer the questions. Don't know how many of those we have today just because we had a really special session with Kurt here. It's probably going to take us an hour and a half to get all the information out of it. So that being said, you're welcome, Kurt.
That being said, today we're going to go over something called liquid strategies. And I have a couple questions here for Kurt and Adam, and we'll just start it off for both of you. Being that the market is so volatile, what strategies are you looking at now for security?
Well, Kurt, what did we hear about volatility? What did they say at Bison? Volatility, they're having volatility
there's a new
withdrawal.
term called volatility fatigue.
Volatility fatigue.
Because since December 2021 till now, the market's relatively flat. What everybody's talking about last year, the market was up 23%.
Okay.
But when you factor in the 2022 losses, it's flat.
It's flat.
Wow.
No gain.
So
No
0%. Yeah.
0%.
Wow.
0%. So all of this came to be, just a little background on this. About probably 6 months ago, our partner in Sarasota, all of you know, True Advice, Chris Slight, we partner with them. They don't own us. We don't own them. It's a partnership. And there's about 9 other firms that are in this partnership. Firms that wanted to create this high level of service and have the correct teams to help families get that $1 billion, $1 million family feel, have a family office. So we wanted to create that. Chris decided that we probably needed a little bit more resources to be able to pull this off. So he had been looking for partners to acquire a piece of True Advice. So that way we would have access to more resources, more capital, more things that our families needed. And he had pretty much given up because a lot of these firms that like to buy our firms want to pay a bunch of money up front, want to phase you out after 3 to 5 years, and then it's not anything like what you built, right? It turns into something completely different. So Kurt and I were on a phone call with Chris, and Chris asked us to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which we were happy to do, so he could discuss one of his plans with us. One of those plans, and you all know what a huge Buffalo Bills fan I am, one of those plans included the Pagulas, Terry and Kim, who own the Buffalo Bills, own the Buffalo Sabres. They own a lot of things. Billionaire family. They wanted to find a way to get into our space with the registered investment advisory firms. And they wanted to be able to provide some of their resources that they had as a billionaire family and make it readily available to everybody. So they wanted to acquire a piece of True Advice and be able to kind of infuse us with those opportunities, which has been amazing so far. Kurt and I just flew up to Buckhead near Atlanta, and we met with the Bison Wealth Group, who's owned by the Pagulas, and we were introduced to some of the strategies that they were using. Now, if any of you know Kurt, you know how hard it is not only to get him to talk, but to get him to commit to new strategies without making sure that they're going to end up being what's best for our family. So we spent a lot of time kind of vetting this, looking at this, tearing it apart brick by brick, making sure it was going to work. So Kurt, why don't you talk a little bit about liquid strategies and not only that, but I think you were pretty happy. I know I was happy with our new relationship with the Pagula family and Bison Wealth and the availability that they gave to, certain strategies for our families, which those families wouldn't have had that any other way, which was nice. So why don't you speak on liquid strategies a little bit?
Yeah, and this all started with Adam's talked on the podcast before about barrier notes and how they reduce the volatility in the portfolio and distribute consistent income.
Right.
And that allows us to control kind of more of the market's ups and downs. But since 1980, the average market correction is 35%.
Right.
Do you know how much you need to recover from a 35% drop?
I do. I'm going to say 70, but
It's a little much.
It's a little too much.
Yeah, a little too
Okay.
much.
Well, that's why I have you.
Yeah, it's over 50%. You got to go back up 50% to make up for a 35% loss.
Okay.
So we were looking for these instruments. The notes did a great job. They still do a great job, but they have a few issues with those notes.
Mm-hmm.
We use only the largest banks to issue those, so there shouldn't be a risk of those banks defaulting, but that always is some sort of risk.
Right.
And then they sometimes get called.
Right.
And since the market's been up over the last year, they have been getting called. And it's hard to find a good replacement because the yields change all the time.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. When they get called, that just means we're doing a really good job, or you're doing a really good job selecting them. And I think that's part of the roadblock that we've hit. Is it's great for the first 5 or 6 months, and then the institutions kind of realize, oh, these are great, and then they call them back. So, not only that, but I think you're selling yourself a little short with the barrier notes as well. And I'm a little partial. You know how much I love them, but the one thing that I love is that we've never missed a payment with our barrier notes with our families. Our families have never lost money with a barrier note. So, to be able to actually on public airspace, is this public airspace? Is that kind of what this? I mean, it's air. We pay for it, but to be able to say that is really special to us. But like anything else, because the name of our firm is Evolution, Kurt's always going to have these concerns. And when he has these concerns, that's when I start to become concerned. So back to what you were saying.
So we look for a solution, and Liquid Strategies has actually been developing these funds for the last 2 years.
Right.
And they finally found a good solution for kind of a replacement of the notes we've been using.
Okay.
So they created 2 funds just for Bison Wealth Advisors that they work with and partner with. And they do different things, income and growth.
Right.
So the income fund distributes consistent quarterly income.
And that's Denali, right? That's what it's named.
Yeah, we call it the Denali fund.
The Denali fund, right?
That's the growth one.
Right.
And then the income one is the Niagara fund.
Right. Named after good old-fashioned Niagara Falls, my hometown.
Yeah.
Well, they named it after a waterfall because they want to make it seem like, it's raining income down on you, right? Is that what they explained to us? Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But they got to find different sources of income than just dividend stocks or bonds. They have to be diversified, but what they've done is gone into the private lending space.
Right.
And
you hear private lending, and that's one of the first, that's like a trigger for some reason, because there's so many bad experiences with private lending. But it's odd because, Tony Robbins, we were just talking about this. Tony Robbins did a whole podcast, and we can share that on the webpage with you if you want, but whole podcast on why private lending is the way to go with investments these days, right? I mean, what did he say? He said,
well, they beat average returns
right,
of the S&P 500 or the market as a whole. That industry has been leading returns.
Right. Yeah. So my understanding is and I don't know, listen, you all know, Kurt is the one who figures all this stuff out. I don't have a brain for this. I have a brain for communicating with you and being able to speak your language rather than investment language. But my understanding of the strategy is that it is actively managed rather than passively managed, which means that somebody is always doing something inside of this fund, correct?
It's pretty active. What the fund is doing is managing the lenders to different industries.
Okay.
Most of those industries being collaterally backed, which means the loans are backed by some sort of asset.
So like the diamond story, right?
Yeah.
So what people don't realize is when diamond people, they need loans.
Diamond mining companies
need loans. They get the loans from other diamond mining companies. So they'll give them 4 or 5 diamond rocks and say, I need, $16 million.
Yeah, there's actually a whole business in diamond lending. So these lenders are the companies that you invest with.
Right.
And the interest rates on those loans are anywhere from 16 to 18%.
And they gladly pay them because it's so hard to get from a bank.
Yeah,
right?
And while the diamond mines are, digging in the ground looking for these diamonds, they kind of get short on cash.
Right.
So they take some of their older diamonds and put those up as leverage for some cash inflow so they can get new diamonds. So
not only are you getting the higher interest rate payment, but if they were to, for whatever reason, default, they have more than they need in the diamonds that they left as collateral.
Exactly.
So there's not a lot of risk with it.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And then they'll go into the payday loans.
Right.
A mechanic, their truck breaks down and they need $800 to fix the truck.
Right.
They'll give them the cash. They have to have access to the person's checking account.
Right.
So that's the collateral. If they don't pay the loan, they just go right into the checking account and take it back.
The money out. Right.
Yep. And those loan interest rates are astronomical. They're in the 20% range.
Yeah, 20% range. So what we're saying about this, just to make this long story in this incredibly complicated scenario short and easy to understand, is whenever they're lending money out and we're investing in the people that are lending the money out, right, and we're taking a percentage of that interest rate,
right,
it's always collateralized, meaning if they can't, if somebody defaults, we already have the collateral to cover what we loan them and then some. Exactly. Right. That's the idea. The diamond story was so good because you're literally handing somebody, if you need a $16 million loan, you're handing them $20 million worth of diamonds as collateral. So that was really interesting to me because it's not just that it covers the debt, it's also a little bit extra on top of that. So, yeah.
And most of the time, if you try to invest in these type of lenders, the fees can be really high.
Right.
They'll charge, 2% ongoing fees and 20% of the gains.
Right.
Kind of like a hedge fund is structured.
Right.
But the Bison Wealth team has been able to bring those costs down and go direct.
And they had a really interesting message that Kurt and I, right away, we knew we were in the right room. They said their motto is win by not losing. That's huge. I mean, that's so eloquently put, but it's the truth, right? That's what we do every day here is win by not losing.
Yeah, the goal is principal preservation with these funds. So, just comparing it to the market over the last 2 years, if you're able to preserve what you didn't lose in 2022, you're able to rebound and recover in 2023 much quicker.
Yeah. And the Niagara Fund, what I really love about it is it's 2% per quarter, right? That's what families get, 2% per quarter. So it's 8% for the year. But then the nice thing about that is when the fund does well, that's redistributed to the investors. So the families end up with an extra 2, 3, sometimes 4% when the fund does well. So, I mean, you're talking about an 11 to a 12% gain for doing nothing. Right. And having a lot of protection built in.
Exactly.
I mean, in your mind, what's the only thing that could really go wrong with these types of investments? Because they're not no risk investments, but it would take a lot for something to go wrong.
It would take a lot. When we look at the different industries that they're lending in, we like to look, the Bison Group does a lot of the due diligence on the lenders, but when they look at these different lending environments, they look at what the interest rates have been over the last 20 or 30 years and what those default rates are. And they're very low. And the interest rates haven't really changed. The diamond lending business has been 16 to 18% for the last 30 years.
Right. It's just interesting that we started out, and Kurt and I, well, not so much Kurt, he always knew where we were going. When we sat out around that table, Kurt and I, the first time, we sat at my dining room table and we looked at, where we were going to end up going. I never had any idea that we would end up partnering with the Buffalo Bills in some way or some form or fashion. It just shows you what a small world it is, right? I grew up in upstate New York. I grew up in Niagara Falls, Buffalo area. And when Chris told us that, I mean, you know what my reaction was. I can't say it on here, but I was just blown away by how small the world is at that point. So,
and then the other fund, the Denali Fund, uses options inside the fund to protect the downside and still get an upside return. And I know you like when I explain options to you, Adam.
Just don't put us to sleep, please. I just don't get it.
I had a question about that. So this is a growth strategy.
Yeah, this is more of a growth strategy.
Okay, so Denali is for the growth and the income is for Niagara, correct?
Right.
So in the growth portion of this, which I'm assuming that you're going to explain right now, is that for what can you compare that to for somebody who's not sure, about what that means?
Let me do it better. How do you explain it to a kindergartner? Let's start there. How do you explain it so that everybody can understand it?
The easiest way I can explain options is through real estate.
Okay, here we go.
Let's say I want to buy your house.
Yes, my house.
Yeah, let's say your house is worth $500,000.
Okay, little light, but I get it. Okay, yeah. I'm following you.
And I want to give you $20,000 today to buy your house a year from now for $500,000.
But it has to still be. But you have the option to buy it
for $500.
For $500, I give that up by taking the $20,000 now. So exactly. If it's worth $600, doesn't matter. You can still buy it at $500.
Yeah. So if the real estate market goes up, and let's say your house is now worth $700,000,
right?
I obviously am going to buy your house, sell it the next day, and make $200,000.
Right.
But if the real estate market goes down, and
you're out $20,000.
Your house is only worth $400,000. I'm out the $20,000. You can keep your house.
Right. That's a good way to explain it. The way I like to explain it, because I came from a casino background, and that drives you nuts when I talk about the casino business, because it's automatically like, oh, gambling. Well, listen, the thing about this is the way I like to explain what they're doing also is a lot of people have seen craps on TV, people rolling the dice, playing craps. Normally, there's a traditional way that you play craps, and then there's an unconventional way where in craps, it's interesting. everybody wants to see a 7 or 11 roll, right? That's the magic number, 7 or 11. Come on. Well, you can also bet that the 7 or 11 is not going to roll, and it costs you a little bit more money to do that. But now you have the casino's edge that the 7 or 11 isn't going to roll. It's one of the only games in the casino where you can do that. You can kind of bet with the casino. So that's how I like to look at it too. These people know when the 7 or 11 might be coming, when it's the most strategic time to finally bet the 7 or 11, or they know when it's probably not going to come. So they're going to short it, or they're going to bet against the 7 or 11 rolling. Is that a good way to explain it too?
Yeah, and you could do the same thing with the market.
Right.
So the same thing as the real estate or the craps, you can do the same thing with stocks or bonds or ETFs.
Right. I know you don't like my gambling references, but we did have a good time. And Kurt and I just went to Las Vegas for a ceremony. And Kurt and I actually gambled a little bit. It was a rare occurrence, but he was actually pretty good at it.
I heard black was hot.
This is a guy that just decides, I'm just going to bet something on black or red. And I'm trying to tell him, no, Kurt, there's 2 green squares in that roulette wheel too. And he'll walk up to a table and you can see what the dealer has rolled. And it's always been red. And he walks up and all of a sudden the dealer rolls black. I mean, he just was very lucky.
Well, this is, going back to what we were talking about with the liquid strategy is, this is a big question is we have inflation, we have immigration issues, war, viruses, and we have the election coming up this year. What are we doing? What are we doing now at Evolution to combat or secure this?
Well, one thing I want to be clear about, the liquid strategies and the funds we talked about today isn't an all-in-one solution.
That's right.
You can't just buy the fund and,
That's it.
There's a plan that goes along with that.
Right. And our plan is based on you packing your bag, right? We have many different compartments in the backpack when you're going on a retirement journey, right? So this is just one compartment. This is where everything we do is goal-focused, right, Lauren? We talk about that all the time. It's not performance-focused. It's goal-focused. If families have a goal of growing their money but taking some of that risk off the table, or they have an income goal, what better way to do it than by getting 8% on your money every year without taking a lot of risk? What better way to grow your money? And Denali and Niagara were named strategically. Denali is like the peak of a mountain, right? The peak of what was it, in Antarctica or Alaska? The peak of anyway, Denali is like the peak of something. So it's that idea of growing to that peak. The Niagara is based on the waterfall. It's the, kind of raining your income down on you. So even just the names of these funds support that kind of goal that we're looking to accomplish, but they're not the only ones that we will use to accomplish goals, right? It's just something that we're excited about that now gives us an even bigger compartment in our bag that we need for our journey on retirement, right?
Yeah, in the backpack, there's those 5 sections of the backpack.
Right.
The foundation, the secure growth, the income, strategic growth, and the aggressive growth.
Yeah.
And you got to have all 5 parts.
Well, and one of the sections, a good story to tell here is you got to have a little bit of sustenance in one of the packs at least, right? Like it might be a bar. Now, funny story about that. We're talking about protein bars, but my wife's a fitness instructor and Kurt likes protein bars as well. And we were on this trip in the airport and my wife's telling us all this wonderful story about how I first met her. And we were going somewhere and she said, "Can you grab me a bar?" So I went into the convenience store, the gas station store, wherever we were. And I didn't know what kind of bar she wanted. So I brought her out a Snickers, a Milky Way, and a Kit Kat. And I'm
my gosh.
I didn't know I didn't know she was talking about Look at me. Do I look like I know what a protein bar is? I didn't know what she was talking about. So Kurt got a kick out of that.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny.
So every chance he gets now,
Kelly,
he says, "Oh, can I get a
saint.
bar?" Yeah, I know she is. She's a saint. She loves that.
Just a saint.
So but my point is, in a backpack, you always want something like that, right? Because you don't know when you're going to get hungry. You need something that's going to. So it's the same thing with your investments. You have to have your goals set out. And when we have the goals, we know what needs to go in the backpack, right? All we're saying is we have a couple different options for each section of the backpack that we need, right? So
excellent, guys. Excellent. So this is something that only Evolution offer this? Is this something that you have to be involved with the Papagula family to have access to these liquid strategies or the liquid strategy?
No, you don't have to be necessarily with the Bison Wealth Group or Evolution purchase them, but they are allowing us access to them easier.
Right. So there are investments that are similar to this. They just don't have the teams behind them like the Bison Group does, like the Pagula family has. They don't have teams that are doing a lot of the due diligence and really trying to make it work. They're not in the weeds. It's a classic story. If you want a Rolex, great. You go out and you buy a Rolex, right? But if you want a specific type of Rolex, or you want to know how the watch is made, then you have a team at Rolex that makes those parts. And I don't even think you can get in to see how they do it. It's in Switzerland or something, right? You have to it's like Fort Knox. It's locked down. You can't ever see.
Oh, I'm sure.
So it's very similar. It's like that higher level of, any watch will tell you the time. But if you want a Rolex, you know the team that you're getting behind you. It's very similar to that.
Right.
Does that make sense, Kurt?
Yeah,
Right.
they are not for profit though.
They are, yeah. Rolex?
Really?
Yeah, Rolex is a non for profit.
Oh, okay.
Wow. It's kind of like you don't really see commercials for like a Lamborghini or anything because it's a status symbol, kind
Correct.
of like the Rolex. It's not something that you see all the time because
Stands
it's a
on its own.
specific.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is I always taught my kids when they were growing up, if they, like Austin, saw a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, he's like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, yeah, you know why they don't have commercials for Lamborghinis or Ferraris? Because millionaires aren't watching TV and
Right.
aren't watching commercials. It's that idea of being active, of making sure that we have the right teams behind us. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, a lot of us sitting in these chairs talking to families, and, we've talked to a lot of advisors. They're talking about how they're building the plans themselves, or they're doing this, or they have a plan for this or a plan for that. They don't have the team that only works in that space, though. They're trying to be the expert in multiple spaces. How can you possibly do that, right? I mean, if I'm a football player, how am I going to put ice skates on and go play hockey all of a sudden? I might be okay because I'm an athlete, but I'm not going to be a really good hockey player
Right.
like I was a really good football player, right? So you have to have teams in each area, right? And that's just the way that it works. Do you have any questions that came up from the podcast this week?
I didn't have any questions for this week because I just really wanted to focus on us talking about the liquid strategies. I thought this was something really special that Kurt could come on and be a guest on here just because, he's so to the point and he can kind of explain it to people and that it is another option that we offer. I will say that we do have a couple workshops coming up.
Good, yeah.
February 6th and 7th at the Residence Inn and Gulf Coast Town Center. It's located behind the LA Fitness there. What we're going to be going over there is taxes and retirement. Our start time is 11 a.m. This is a great educational workshop, a great opportunity for you to come in and get some real wisdom. We also have our Q1 Lunch and Learn coming up with Victor Wilkerson from Bison Wealth, which will be really interesting.
Victor's fine. I like Victor. Yeah, we just met him. He's great.
He helped develop a lot of the funds.
the
So
funds,
you'll get a lot of information on everything we've talked about today. And that'll be at the Hilton Garden Inn on Wednesday, March 6th. Start time is 11:30 a.m. We do a buffet-style lunch. This is an opportunity, as always, for you to bring a friend or a loved one with you to join our exclusive ambassador club. And when they make a first appointment with us, this is something, a friend or loved one that can actually benefit from our services.
Yeah, let's
here
be
at
real clear about
Evolution.
that. If you have somebody that you feel like really needs the help, that's who we're interested in meeting. We don't want you to become a part of the ambassador club just to become a part of the ambassador club. We know that it's neat. We know that you get your tumblers and your different event every year and everything else. But the reality is we want to make sure that you have the ability to reach out a hand and help somebody. And when they come into a vision meeting with us, they leave with a lot more knowledge than what they came in with. So a vision meeting, that first appointment with us, that vision meeting, that's something that really helps people get on the right track, whether we end up talking about numbers or not. There's a lot of questions people have about retirement. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. We got into this business to make a lot of money, and we've done that. That's great. But eventually you start wondering, what's next? And for me, even though it's a lofty goal, we're going to change this industry. We're going to help this industry evolve. That's what we want. So if you want to be a part of that, bring somebody that could use the help. Don't worry about getting your tumbler or your party or anything. Just bring somebody that you feel like could really use the help. Now, the other thing is with the way the podcast has been going, we're sitting at over 62 downloads every episode that we do, 62 new downloads. I know that you're out there and you listen to this podcast. If you've had any concerns, if you've been afraid to reach out for any reason, don't be afraid. We're here for you. We're here to help. This is not a pushy sales process. We don't do this to make sales. We do this to help families in retirement. So just start out with an email if you need to. Just email Lauren at evoretire.com. Go to the taxfreefortmyers.com website. I know you're already all doing that because we see the number of downloads of the books and everything. What we want to make sure you know is this is not just an entertainment-based show. I know we all have a good time on here, but if you really feel like you need the help, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for it, because that's what we're here for. You never have to worry about anybody being pushy or treating you the wrong way. The number we're most proud of is 0. We've lost 0 families since we've started this, and we don't have other firms spend a whole week talking about their turnover ratio of clients. And we don't do that. We don't have to have it's another week that we don't have to worry about something like that. We just don't have families leave. If you don't think you can be that comfortable, come to one of our events, come to one of the lunch and learns, come to one of the workshops. I guarantee you will have an amazing experience, because that's what we wanted to create here. The other thing I wanted to do, I'm surprising Kurt and Lauren with this. I've recently realized, you know what? And some of you have asked for this. We don't have any swag for the Retirement Evolved podcast. So what we're going to do is, if you email Lauren, we're going to make sure we get one of our new amazing Retirement Evolved podcast shirts out to you. Just tell us your size. Don't be crazy with this. If you have 3 or 4 members of your family, that's fine. But don't send an email and ask for like 50 shirts, because we're not there yet. But we are designing a really neat new kind of swag for the podcast show. We don't want you to pay for it. We just want to be able to show that you listen and you represent this area and you represent for what's best in this area. So I'm really excited about that. You guys,
that'll be amazing.
That, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's wonderful.
Kurt's
Adam.
looking at me like, oh, we're spending more money.
Oh,
okay,
yeah,
great.
yeah. Actually, can we get a round of applause for Kurt?
Yes, we can. There you go, Kurt. And you know what? I'm so impressed with him, I'm also going to give him my favorite. Woo! You did great today, Kurt. You did great. We appreciate it.
Kurt, thank you for coming on the podcast and providing people with the information that they may or may not, probably know. The black swan thing,
Black
we always
swan.
talk about
we don't
that.
know what we don't know, right?
So
yeah, it's crazy.
Great episode, guys.
Yeah, great episode, Kurt. You have anything else you want to say?
Thanks.
Yeah, there it is. The man, a few words here. Any other information you want, anything you want to learn more about, you know where to find us. We are Evolution Retirement Services, Evolution Wealth Management. We are proud to be, hopefully, the only stop you need in retirement. And enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. We'll talk soon.
Investment advisory services are offered through Evolution Wealth Management Incorporated, an investment advisor registered with the state of Florida. Registration does not imply any level of skill or training. Evolution Wealth Management's unique CRD number is 307644. You can obtain a copy of Evolution Wealth Management's firm brochure, Form ADV Part 2A, free of charge by visiting advisorinfo.sec.gov. Evolution Wealth Management offers investment advisory services only, where it is appropriately registered or exempt from registration, and only after clients have entered into an investment advisory agreement confirming the terms of engagement and have been provided a copy of the firm's ADV Part 2A. Insurance services are provided by Evolution Retirement Services. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to restrictions, limitations, or early withdrawal fees, which vary by the issuer. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. You should consider the charges, risks, expense, and investment objectives carefully before entering a contract. This material has been prepared for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a solicitation to affect or attempt to affect either transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. This material is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, accounting, or other financial advice. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before engaging in any transaction. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services are affiliated entities.